Sunset Boulevard commits the ultimate story taboo, letting a corpse tell its own story. Billy Wilder's decision to have Joe Gillis narrate from beyond the grave wasn't just stylistic flourish, it was a deliberate assault on Hollywood's sanitized storytelling conventions. The opening immediately signals that this won't be another rags to riches fantasy, but a warning story about Tinseltown's casualties. Wilder's masterstroke lies in transforming the traditional murder mystery structure. Instead of asking who committed the crime, the film forces audiences to confront how someone reaches such a desperate end. This shift from whodunit to howdunit creates an atmosphere of inescapable doom that permeates every subsequent scene. The famous pool shot presented technical challenges that pushed 1950 cinematography to its limits. Placing a giant mirror on the pool floor and filming its reflection required precise lighting calculations to avoid unwanted glare while maintaining the shot's haunting perspective. The result captures both the literal and metaphorical depths of Joe's downfall. Wilder's cynical narration style perfectly matched the film's scathing critique of Hollywood's treatment of forgotten stars. The director understood that having a dead protagonist comment on his own demise would create an unsettling intimacy between character and audience. This technique influenced decades of noir filmmakers who recognized that sometimes the most powerful stories come from those who've already paid the ultimate price for their ambitions. Touch of Evil's opening tracking shot achieves something most films never attempt, making the camera itself a participant in building dread. Orson Welles orchestrated a 3.5-minute technical ballet where every element had to synchronize perfectly. Actors hitting precise marks, vehicles navigating choreographed traffic patterns, and a crane operator gliding the camera over buildings and through crowded streets without missing a beat. The complexity was unprecedented for 1958, with Welles demanding multiple takes until the fluidity matched his vision. What separated the sequence from typical crane shots was Welles's revolutionary approach to sound design. Rather than the controlled audio mixes standard for the era, he instructed his sound team to layer overlapping voices, mariachi music, and car radio fragments, creating an auditory chaos that mirrored the visual tension. This cacophony immersed viewers in the border town's anxiety, making them complicit observers rather than passive spectators. Universal Studios pressured Welles to shorten the sequence, fearing audiences would find it confusing. The director refused, insisting the shot was essential to the film's thematic unity about moral ambiguity at the border. His defiance became symbolic of artistic vision versus commercial demands. Modern restorations have revealed the shot's influence on filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, who cite it as a benchmark for sustained tension. The sequence remains a touchstone for directors balancing technical ambition with narrative purpose, proving that sometimes the most daring creative choices become the most enduring cinematic landmarks. Psycho opens with the most mundane deception in cinema history, a simple affair masquerading as the film's central conflict. The stark documentary text reading Phoenix, Arizona, Friday, December 11th, 2:43 p.m., creates an almost clinical realism that makes the eventual horror feel shockingly authentic. Hitchcock deliberately chose this newsreel-style approach to ground audiences in recognizable reality before shattering their expectations completely. The camera's methodical drift across Phoenix's skyline before penetrating that darkened hotel window transforms every viewer into an unwitting voyeur. This slow, invasive movement makes audiences complicit in the very act of watching private moments unfold, a theme that will define the entire film. Marion Crane's desperate desire for respectability with Sam Loomis establishes what appears to be a straightforward romantic drama about financial obstacles preventing marriage. Her subsequent theft seems like the logical next step in a conventional crime story about desperate lovers. Hitchcock understood that audiences needed to invest emotionally in Marion's plight before he could devastate them with her abrupt removal from the narrative. The Phoenix hotel room scene functions as elaborate misdirection, convincing viewers they're watching a film about embezzlement and forbidden romance rather than psychological terror. This opening brilliantly weaponizes audience expectations, using familiar dramatic territory to mask the film's true nature. Many critics argue that the documentary-style precision of those opening titles would later influence countless thrillers seeking to blur the line between fiction and reality through stark, factual presentation. Lawrence of Arabia shatters epic film conventions by opening with its legendary hero's death on an ordinary English country road. David Lean deliberately chose this mundane setting over the sweeping desert vistas audience expected, forcing viewers to confront mortality before witnessing any heroic deeds. The motorcycle crash itself unfolds with shocking brevity. No dramatic music, no slow motion, just the swift, almost absurd finality of a man losing control on a quiet lane. Lean filmed the sequence using handheld cameras to create documentary-style realism, stripping away any romantic notions about heroic deaths. The subsequent memorial service becomes a masterclass in narrative misdirection, presenting conflicting testimonies that reveal more questions than answers about Lawrence's true character. One speaker praises his military genius, while another dismisses him as a publicity-seeking fraud, creating immediate uncertainty about the man audiences are about to spend nearly 4 hours watching. Lean understood that traditional epic openings would have undermined his central theme, the gap between public legend and private reality. The church scene was deliberately cast with recognizable British character actors to ground the mythical Lawrence in recognizable social context. This unconventional structure influenced countless biographical films that similarly began with their subject's demise to examine the construction of legend, from Citizen Kane to Amadeus, establishing a template for deconstructing heroic mythology through narrative reversal. Ancient knights and bloody crusades flash across the screen in ornate text, establishing a Golden Falcon century-spanning legend before audiences meet a single character. John Huston's 1941 masterpiece opens with this sweeping historical crawl that reads like medieval chronicle, detailing how the precious bird passed through royal hands, survived pirate raids, and accumulated mythic status across generations of greed-driven pursuit. The elaborate backstory transforms what could have been a simple plot device into an object worthy of obsession, lending weight to every desperate act that follows. Then comes the jarring cut to reality. Spade and Archer painted on a mundane office window, followed by Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade methodically rolling a cigarette with practiced indifference. This whiplash transition from epic legend to hard-boiled cynicism creates the film's central tension. Characters from a modern, pragmatic world driven to violence by an artifact steeped in romantic mythology. Huston's decision to mythologize the MacGuffin through opening exposition influenced countless later films, from Raiders of the Lost Ark's supernatural relics to Pulp Fiction's mysterious briefcase. The text crawl serves dual purposes, educating audiences unfamiliar with Dashiell Hammett's source novel while elevating the Falcon beyond mere treasure and into symbol of humanity's eternal susceptibility to legendary promises. Critics widely consider this opening the template for franchise world-building, demonstrating how backstory could enhance stakes without overwhelming present-day narrative. The Falcon's fabled history makes its ultimate revelation as worthless fake all the more devastating, proving that legends often matter more than truth in driving human behavior. Credits race frantically across a stark green grid, sliding up, down, and diagonally in patterns that mirror the chaos about to engulf Cary Grant's unsuspecting advertising executive. Saul Bass's 1959 title sequence for North by Northwest pioneered kinetic typography as a storytelling device, transforming static text into animated elements that visually predicted the film's themes of mistaken identity and relentless pursuit. The geometric grid creates deliberate disorientation, with names appearing and vanishing at unpredictable angles that force viewers to actively track information rather than passively absorb it. Bass spent months perfecting the timing, ensuring each credit's movement felt urgent without becoming illegible, establishing principles that modern motion graphics designers still follow decades later. The sequence's true genius emerges in its final moments, when the abstract grid seamlessly dissolves into the glass facade of a Manhattan skyscraper, revealing that the geometric pattern was actually the building's window structure all along. This transition represents one of cinema's most elegant mergers of graphic design with live-action photography, connecting the title sequence's artificial world to the film's real urban setting. Bass collaborated closely with Alfred Hitchcock to ensure the grid's mathematical precision reflected the director's meticulous plotting, creating visual harmony between opening credits and narrative structure. The technique influenced countless later designers, from Maurice Binder's James Bond sequences to modern television title cards, that treat typography as character rather than mere information. Industry professionals widely credit this sequence with establishing title design as legitimate artistic discipline, proving that opening credits could enhance rather than interrupt cinematic storytelling through pure visual innovation. A single plucked string cuts through the silence like a sardonic laugh, immediately announcing that the third man refuses to follow conventional noir rules. Carol Reed's decision to open with Anton Karas's zither rather than brooding orchestral darkness creates an atmosphere of cheerful corruption that perfectly mirrors post-war Vienna's moral landscape. The instrument's jaunty melody dances over cynical narration, describing black market operations and four-power occupation, establishing a tone of world-weary amusement that traditional film scores couldn't achieve. Reed discovered Karas performing in a Viennese wine garden, recognizing that the zither's distinctive sound could function as the city's musical voice rather than mere background accompaniment. The composer crafted melodies that felt simultaneously nostalgic and sinister, capturing Vienna's fallen grandeur through an instrument that embodied both folk tradition and urban decay. Critics initially dismissed the zither as inappropriately lighthearted for such dark material, arguing that its playful timbre undermined the story's gravity. However, this apparent mismatch became the score's greatest strength, creating emotional complexity through musical irony that enhanced, rather than competed with the narrative's moral ambiguity. Karas composed the entire score during filming, improvising themes that responded directly to each scene's specific atmosphere. The resulting music transcended its supporting role to become a character unto itself, with the famous theme becoming a worldwide hit that topped international charts. Modern film composers frequently cite Anton's work as revolutionary proof that unconventional instrumentation can redefine genre expectations through bold artistic choices. A rubber duck bobbing innocently on water masks one of cinema's most calculated franchise blueprints. Goldfinger's pre-title sequence operates as a completely self-contained mini-movie, showcasing James Bond's lethal competence through explosive action that has absolutely nothing to do with the main plot. This deliberate narrative separation became the template that every subsequent Bond film would follow, creating audience expectations for spectacular curtain raisers before the real story begins. Director Guy Hamilton crafted what he called a complete story in itself, establishing key franchise elements through pure visual storytelling. The wetsuit to tuxedo reveal that transforms Bond from military operative to sophisticated gentleman in seconds, cutting-edge gadgets that blend practicality with showmanship, and the inevitable beautiful woman who serves as both reward and distraction. Sean Connery's seamless costume transition required freezing the wetsuit to appear dry, while the crew shot the tuxedo reveal in reverse to maintain fabric perfection. The sequence's crowning moment, Bond's deadpan shocking, positively shocking, after electrocuting an assassin, crystallized the character's signature blend of violence and wit that would define the franchise for decades. Some critics reportedly questioned whether opening with unrelated action might confuse audiences, but Hamilton's gamble paid off spectacularly. The formula proved so successful that Mission Impossible and other action franchises adopted similar standalone opening set pieces. Modern analysts recognize this 3-minute sequence as perhaps the most influential opening in franchise filmmaking, establishing the expectation that blockbuster series must deliver immediate spectacle before earning the right to tell their actual stories. Stanley Kubrick transforms nuclear warfare into an obscene love affair through one of cinema's most audacious opening sequences. The B-52 bomber's mid-air refueling becomes an unmistakably sexual metaphor as the fuel probe penetrates the receiving aircraft with mechanical precision, all choreographed to a lush, romantic arrangement of When Johnny Comes Marching Home. This perverse ballet strips away any heroic pretense from military operations, revealing the Cold War's fetishization of destructive technology. Critics widely interpret Kubrick's deliberate choice of the Civil War march for its ironic distance from nuclear reality, creating emotional whiplash that defines the film's satirical approach. The sequence required weeks of filming cooperation from reluctant Air Force officials who initially refused access, forcing the production to shoot from considerable distances that critics argue inadvertently enhanced the surreal, dreamlike quality. The director's meticulous framing transforms these massive war machines into graceful dancers performing an intimate ritual above the clouds, finding beauty in humanity's most terrifying creation. This romantic treatment immediately establishes the film's central thesis, that nuclear strategy operates through the same irrational impulses as sexual desire, complete with foreplay, climax, and devastating aftermath. Some reports suggest the juxtaposition sparked immediate controversy among military officials who recognized their sacred procedures being mocked through cinematic innuendo. Following this aerial seduction, the film cuts abruptly to deadpan documentary narration, explaining fail-safe protocols, creating jarring tonal shifts that became Kubrick's signature technique for exposing institutional absurdity through calculated emotional manipulation. "4 million years of human evolution unfold without a single word of dialogue as Stanley Kubrick forces audiences to witness the birth of consciousness itself. The Dawn of Man sequence stretches nearly 20 minutes across prehistoric landscapes, demanding viewers absorb information purely through visual observation. No exposition, no narrative shortcuts, just patient documentation of ape-like ancestors discovering their destiny. This radical approach transforms cinema into anthropological study, treating the camera as an impartial scientific instrument recording humanity's most crucial moment. The mysterious black monolith's arrival triggers everything that follows, its perfect geometric form contrasting sharply with the organic chaos of primitive life, representing knowledge descending from unknown sources to spark technological awakening. When the lead ape discovers bone fragments can become weapons, Kubrick captures this revelation through extended close-ups and deliberate pacing that mirrors the slow process of intellectual breakthrough. The sequence's climactic moment delivers cinema's most celebrated edit. The throne bone spinning through prehistoric sky seamlessly transforms into an orbiting satellite, bridging millions of years in a single cut that redefines montage as temporal compression. This audacious transition connects primitive toolmaking directly to space-age technology, suggesting that humanity's greatest achievements stem from the same violent impulses that created the first weapon. Kubrick's commitment to wordless storytelling influenced directors like Terrence Malick and Denis Villeneuve, who recognized that profound themes could emerge from patient visual meditation rather than verbal explanation. The sequence proved that mainstream cinema could function as a philosophical essay, using pure imagery to explore consciousness, evolution, and humanity's relationship with technology. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.